AfterBuzz TV's Chief Operating Officer Phil Svitek comes a weekly digital series that shares his insights, concepts, and findings from years of learning and mentorship. Welcome to Phil Svitek Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the series. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to join me on today's lesson. My name is Phil Svitek, as if you couldn't have gathered that already, and I've been AfterBuzz TV's Chief Operating Officer since its inception back in 2011. For those unfamiliar, AfterBuzz TV is the leader in TV discussion. In fact, it's been dubbed the ESPN of TV talk. Today, we're going back to the basics. The basics of what, you might be thinking. It's not the basics of any subject, but rather the importance of allowing yourself to reset to a starting position. A system reboot, if you will.
Hold on to your butt.
3 things. First, how do we define the basics? Secondly, what does resetting to a starting position even mean? And 3, why is it even important to do so? Let's tackle the first part. Going back to the basics is quite literally just that. The basics, ground zero, the fundamentals of whatever discipline you're partaking in.
Every great wizard in history has started out as nothing more than what we are now.
Take a sport like soccer, or football, as it is more often referred to worldwide.
No finer stadium in football, the Bernabeu, the setting for one of football's most demanding fixtures.
The basics of soccer are crisp and accurate passing, simple dribbling and not being too fancy with any moves, not forcing the ball if there's defenders in the way, 1 to 3 touches max. For those not versed in the game, this implies moving the ball from one player to the next, the opposite of ball hogging essentially. The basics also mean keeping a good formation, and on defense it means not lunging in unnecessarily so you don't get beat easily.
Kill me quickly.
I would soon destroy a stained glass window as an artist like yourself.
Especially in sports, you'll hear the phrase, they're doing the little things well. Most winning teams, and I venture to say all winning teams, couldn't win if they only did the slick eye-grabbing tricks. The advanced techniques are only effective when combined with the fundamentals of the game. Basketball movies satirize this notion with the old guard complaining how the new generation is too focused on the wrong or fancy individual skills before ever mastering the basics of the sport.
Someone like you could combine the old school with the new school.
With every discipline, there's a starting position. The thing or things you should learn first and foremost. In learning these, you can then advance to the next part. The more difficult parts of that discipline. It's like climbing stairs. You take one by one, starting with the bottom until you get to the top. A lot of this is so plain and simple, and yet every day people try to skip sections or whole parts entirely. They are too impatient. Learning the fundamentals seems quite boring and wasteful of their time. They want to be masters right away.
All right, remember what I said, huh? Just use your shoulders to push the ball, not your arms. Don't break the wrist, and bring that putter back just like...
You're confusing me. Just let me put the ball in the hole.
All right.
Nothing in life works this way, trust me. It may for a short time, but more than likely it's attributed to just dumb luck, and in time you'll be exposed to fraud.
The truth is, most of that was just luck. I didn't know what I was doing half the time. I nearly always had help.
I see this with Hollywood writers a lot. Many start writing scripts without having studied the craft itself. They say to themselves that a script doesn't have as many words as a novel, so it'll be easier and faster to write. Not true, my friends. You have to have an extreme economy of words and have the most impact with what's actually on the page. They don't know what constitutes as good storytelling, and therefore, how in the world can they be expected to tell a great story? Again, it may happen by chance, but it won't last.
I can't believe you're a professional golfer. I think you should be working at the snack bar.
You better relax, Bob.
There is no way that you could have been as bad at hockey as you are at golf.
Last week, I used filmmaker Robert Rodriguez to highlight that lesson. One of the aspects I highlighted was that from a very early age, he practiced and studied filmmaking in all of its glory. Much of his learning was through trial and error, because it's all he could do. But that's what he did. He made short films and experimented with different techniques he wanted to learn. Once he learned a certain skill set, it became part of his toolkit, being able to reuse it when needed later in life. Furthermore, if you watch his interviews, he says those earlier films were the building blocks, or rather stepping stones, to get to his next, more elaborate movie. At this point, hopefully you know what the definition of the basics are. For clarity as to the specifics of your field of interest, do some research. A simple Google search for the fundamentals of, let's say, photography or the basics of rock climbing work well to bring up meaningful results. If it helps, understand first that any area of life can be boiled down to some core components. Simple ideas that must be deeply understood in order for you to become a master.
Happy learned how to putt. Uh-oh.
By the way, the fundamentals can be easy to ignore in an environment where they aren't stressed. If you're taking a class, a good teacher will teach the fundamentals at the same time as teaching more complex techniques. Or so I hope they do. Anyway, make sure to know what the fundamentals are, even if the instructor is not telling you outright,
Hey, this is a fundamental.
It is important for you to know that those are the fundamentals. Otherwise, how can you go back to the basics if, again, you don't know what they are? Now, let's discuss what going back to the basics means and when you would want to do it. In soccer, there were certain matches I've played in where the game wasn't going in our favor. We got frustrated, of course, and our coach Paul Hunter would tell us, go back to the basics. What he meant by this was focus on the little things and do them well. Don't focus beyond the basics, as clearly that wasn't working for us. All we focused on was connecting our passes and keeping the ball. By resetting in this way, we were able to build our confidence very quickly and take back control of the game. The pendulum swung in our favor. In a way, it's saying don't overthink and don't overcomplicate. Get out of your own head and get out of your own way. Are you familiar with the acronym KISS? Keep it simple, stupid. KISS indeed. That was the problem with us on the field. See, we overthought certain things. We were concentrating on the wrong aspects of the game. By going back to the basics, it reshifted our focus back to the proper priorities. In the creative arts, particularly the ones that require longer durations to complete, whether it be filmmaking, writing, painting, and so on and so forth, it can be very important to reset one's mind by going back to the basics. I know for my own projects, I want them to be so good, like this one for example, that I sometimes lose sight of what really is important and spend time on what isn't important. But I catch myself and I cycle through my mind of what I'm trying to accomplish and why I'm trying to do so. And then that gives me the right steps to accomplish the goal. I find often in life we already know the solution or the way we should do something. It's our own thoughts that cloud our judgments. Overcomplication can happen within companies too. In order for companies to grow, they have to change, adapt, and evolve. And oftentimes, this dilutes the original goals, notions, and practices that made the company so effective in the first place. But companies that not only survive and thrive are aware of this fact and not only make sure that any initiative will help serve the greater good, but they'll also, after a certain amount of time, assess the cost and benefit factors of any new methods. Some they keep, others they scrap. But the more everything services their simple and original goal, the stronger it will become. Take AfterBuzz TV. Our goal is to serve TV superfans anytime, anywhere. And I'd say we're doing that quite well. And anything new that we do has to serve that purpose. If you really think about it, going back to the basics is really a forced introspection to help yield greater results. Here's a quick anecdote about truly going back to the basics. In 1961, the Green Bay Packers lost the NFL championship to the Philadelphia Eagles. On the first day back in July at the training camp, after that heartbreaking season, Coach Vince Lombardi, as author David Maraniss explains,
began a tradition of starting from scratch, assuming that the players were blank slates who carried over no knowledge from the year before. He began with the most elemental statement of all. Gentlemen, he said, holding a pigskin in his right hand, this is a football.
In the days that followed, his methodical adherence to the fundamentals continued. They learned to block, throw, and tackle. They studied the entire playbook, beginning with page 1. And 6 months later, Green Bay defeated the New York Giants with a score of 37-0 to win the NFL championship. Let's take it back to the individual. For a lot of people, diets serve as a way to reset the body. Perhaps you're eating too much junk food and realize that your body needs actual sustenance and not the garbage you've been feeding it. Altering your diet in this way is a form of resetting. Why do most cultures promote meditation? Because It is the easiest but quite often the best way to reset ourselves. Meditation aims to quiet the mind so that solutions can appear right in front of you as they always were there. Meditation triggers your body back to normal. It promotes deep breathing, one of the true fundamentals of all life. So, if you're ever feeling frustrated in any arena of life, no matter what part of the process you're at, don't be afraid to reset and just go back to the basics. Because no matter how much things change, the sound principles will remain the same. It will propel you forward better than just continuing to needlessly and tirelessly hammer away. By the way, sometimes we divert away from the basics because the alternative perhaps offers a lesser path of resistance. But as mentioned before, the results of this will not be what you expect them to be, and in time, you may pay a price that you weren't expecting. Utilizing the basics creates tiny gains that add up to something very significant. Remember though, in order to be able to go back to the basics, you must first and foremost understand the basics, so learn those first. Good luck. Also, since the World Cup is in full swing, and I've been talking about soccer and sports throughout this entire video, allow me to say, allez la bleu. That means, let's go France in French. And as always, here's quotes to reinforce today's lesson on the importance of going back to the basics.
Success is neither the magical nor mysterious. Success is the natural consequence of consistently applying the basic fundamentals. Can I jump over 2 or 3 guys like I used to? No. Am I as fast as I used to be? No. But I still have the fundamentals and smarts. That's what enables me to still be a dominant player. As a kid growing up, I never skipped steps. I always worked on the fundamentals because I know athleticism is fleeting. All compromise is based on give and take, but there could be no give and take on fundamentals. Any compromise on mere fundamentals is a surrender, for it is all give and no take. The technology at the leading edge changes so rapidly that you have to keep current after you get out of school. I think probably the most important thing is having good fundamentals. Great sculptors and artists spend countless hours perfecting their talents. They don't pick up a chisel or a brush and palette expecting immediate perfection. They understand that they will make many errors as they learn, but they start with the basics, the key fundamentals first. Before you head off, here's a few final things to take note of. First, the transcript of this episode is available in the description. That way, you can review the lesson at your convenience. While you're already here, leave us a comment with any thoughts, opinions, or questions you may have so Phil or I can respond. We love to read what you guys have to say. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that like button and let your friends and family know about it. If you'd like to be notified when future episodes release, be sure to subscribe on either Apple Podcasts or YouTube. For more Phil's projects and shows here at the network, check out philsvitek.com. Lastly, if you're a new host in the LA area and would like to join AfterBuzz TV, click the link provided for you in the description. Or, of course, you can tweet at philsvitek or Instagram me at bonjourjuliette. Thanks for watching. I'm Julia Bear, a producer on the show, and we'll see you next Monday with another one of Phil's life lessons.